My name is Maya Ellison. I'm 30, and I spent most of my 20s proving to myself that careful choices can outshout chaos. I didn't have a safety net, so I became one. I learned to love receipts, spreadsheets, the stubborn calm of numbers. That's how I ended up with a 3-bedroom townhouse and a habit of triple locking the door even when I'm home. When my parents divorced, I was 12 and my sister Jenna was 8. Dad drifted like a signal fading out. Fewer calls, then birthday cards, then silence. Mom, Marilyn, said he was selfish, said men like him forget their families the moment the door closes. Maybe she believed it. I did, for a long time. Jenna and I took that story differently. I marched in a straight line. After-school jobs, honor roll, scholarships, an accounting degree I paid for with cafeteria wages and tutoring. Jenna didn't. She tried community college twice. Both times the party outlasted the plan. By 19, she was pregnant. By 26, she had 3 kids: Ella, 7, Mason, 5, and Lily, 3, and 2 missing fathers. For the past 2 years, they've lived in Mom's basement, the kind of place where mornings smell like damp laundry and last night's arguments. 2 years ago, I bought the townhouse. Nothing fancy, a decent school district, a patch of grass I convinced myself was a yard. I celebrated by ordering a pizza and assembling shelving until my hands shook. I kept the receipt for the keys. Last Sunday, Mom invited me over for dinner and made my favorite, lemon chicken with too much rosemary. That's how I knew something was wrong. Mom only performs nostalgia when she's about to break something. After dessert, she folded her hands like a judge who already knows the verdict. "Maya," she said, "we need to talk about your living situation." I thought she was going to ask to move in. She didn't. "I want you to sign your townhouse over to Jenna," she said, like she was asking me to pass the salt. "Those babies need a real home. Bedrooms, a yard, stability. You're young, no kids. You can get an apartment. You'll bounce back." The word bounce hit me like a bruise. I stared at her, waiting for a smile, the "you know I'm kidding" laugh. It never came. Instead, Mom pulled a stapled packet from her purse, printouts about quitclaim deeds, and how simple this can be if you love your family. "I worked 8 years for that house," I said. My voice sounded like a stranger's. Too slow, like I was learning my own language. 60-hour weeks, overtime, ramen in a coffee mug. Mom's eyes softened, the way people look at a dog that won't stop guarding a stick. "You had opportunities Jenna didn't," she said. "She had the kids. She chose family." "She chose men who left," I said before I could stop myself. The room chilled. Mom's mouth pinched. "There it is. You think you're better, cold, materialistic, just like your father." That landed. It always does. Years of wiring teach your nerves where to flinch. I listed everything I'd already done. The money for Mom's property taxes, the car repairs for Jenna, the school supplies, the babysitting, the quiet Venmo transfers labeled "Don't worry." Mom nodded, like I had confirmed her point. "Exactly. You've always been our helper. This is just the next step." I don't remember standing up, only the scrape of the chair and how small the kitchen suddenly felt. I told her no. Not yet. Not maybe. Not we'll see. No. By the time I reached my car, my phone was vibrating itself warm. Text from Mom about family duty, 2 missed calls from Aunt Patrice, a Facebook post I wasn't supposed to see about children who forget where they came from. Somewhere in the pile, a voicemail from Jenna. "The kids cry at night. They need rooms, Maya. You don't even have a husband." I drove home in a silence so loud it pounded behind my eyes. In my entryway, I caught myself checking the deadbolt, then checked it again, then a third time. On the hook by the door, my keyring hung beside a blank space, the spare I'd given Jenna months ago, just in case. A small, harmless trust I'd forgotten to take back. I should have listened to the way my stomach dropped when I looked at that empty hook. I should have known a thing as small as a key could pry open a life. That night, my boyfriend Ethan Cole wrapped me in a hug that said, "I'm on your side." "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "You said no to drowning." I wanted to believe him. But guilt is a clever editor. It rewrites the parts where you learn to swim and highlights the scenes where someone else is gasping. 3 days later, I learned what happens when a no becomes an obstacle in someone else's plan. And I learned exactly what a spare key can do. It was a Wednesday, the kind of afternoon that pretends to be ordinary. I had my headset on, a spreadsheet open, and Ethan's text glowing on my phone. Dinner at 7? I'll bring that ridiculous gelato you like. I was deciding if I could leave early when my neighbor Richard called. Richard is retired military. He notices things for a living. "Hey, Maya," he said, holding his voice flat like a ruler. "Don't want to alarm you, but there's a black pickup in your driveway. Guy's mid-30s tall. Been going in and out of your front door with boxes." It took me a second to understand the sentence. Then I was already standing, the chair rolling back like I'd kicked it. "Do you recognize him?" I asked. "Can't be sure," Richard said. "But your sister was with him on the last trip." My body couldn't decide whether to go cold or start sweating. I told my manager I had an emergency and drove like I was trying to catch my life before it hit the ground. Half a block from my townhouse, I cut the engine and coasted to the curb. There it was, a black pickup straddling my driveway like it belonged. The front door was propped open with one of my planters. From inside came the slap of boxes and the sound of people speaking like they'd already won. I called the police and waited by the mailbox because fear has learned manners in me. It knows how to queue up proof. While I waited, Jenna came out carrying a bedding set with cartoon planets. She was using my spare key, dangling from a pink lanyard like a charm. "Jenna!" I called. My voice was thin. It didn't matter. She jumped anyway, guilt a reflex. "Oh, Maya!" She pasted on a smile so hopeful it made me angrier. "We're just getting a head start. Mom said—" "Mom said what?" I asked. I kept my hands at my sides because if I didn't, they'd shake. Before she could answer, Caleb stepped into the doorway, shouldering a box that used to live in my office. He wore a grin that had learned to pass for confidence. It curdled when he saw me. He shifted like he might set the box down gently, then didn't bother and dropped it. Something inside clattered and snapped. "Hey," he said, and the word sounded like trespass. "You're not supposed to be near Jenna," I said. "There's an order." "Relax," he said, smiling in a way men do when they want you to doubt your own eyes. "We're working it out." Jenna flinched at that. A hairline cracked down her bravado. 2 officers arrived quickly. Their presence turned the air from a dare into a rule. I explained. I showed my driver's license, my deed. I didn't realize I'd brought the folder I keep for this kind of apocalypse. Numbers make me feel less small. Jenna hugged the bedding set to her chest. "Maya asked me to house sit," she told the officer, her voice wobbling into innocence. "She gave me a key. We were just moving some things in to get ready. It's temporary." The officer looked at me. I didn't look away. "I gave her the key for emergencies," I said. "This isn't an emergency. This is an invasion." Caleb had been quiet, but quiet is a shape. One officer asked for his name, and when he gave it, something shifted. Professional, almost bored. "Mr. Ricks, do you understand there is an active protective order naming Ms. Ellison?" Jenna's face went chalk white. Caleb's smile thinned but stayed. "That's old news," he said. "We're good now." "It's active," the officer said. "You're under arrest for violation of a protective order." The words fell in slow motion. Caleb blinked, as if he hadn't learned this line could be spoken aloud. He turned toward Jenna like she could stop the scene if she cried hard enough. She reached for his sleeve, then snatched her hand back, caught between whichever version of the story Mom taught her to believe and the one unfolding in front of strangers with clipboards. As they were cuffing him, Caleb's grin came back, smaller, like a bad souvenir. "You can't keep us out forever," he told me. It wasn't loud, but I felt it in my ankles. When they took him away, the officers turned to the house. The inside looked like a dream I didn't pick. Hot pink paint swiped over the gray I'd chosen after 6 sample cans and 1 quiet weekend. My living room furniture was stacked in the garage like a garage sale no one had priced. In the hallway, Lily's nursery bloomed where my guest room used to be, pastel decals marching up the wall. My home office, the one room that made me feel like I'd built something, was gutted. The desk I'd assembled the night I got the keys lay on its side, legs sticking out like an animal hit by a car. Jenna followed us through the wreckage, talking too fast and too soft. "We were going to paint it back," she said. "We were going to pay you back. Mom said—" "What did Mom say?" I asked, because I needed to hear it written down in someone else's mouth. "She said you'd already agreed," Jenna whispered, and her voice cracked open. "She said the paper part was just a formality, and you were dragging your feet to be difficult. She told me to enroll the kids and get them settled so you couldn't change your mind." The officer asked for the key. Jenna slid the lanyard off and held it out like an apology she hoped to keep. "I need you to leave," I said. I was aiming for calm and ended up at tired. You can take your boxes. The paint stays on the wall until I decide what to do about it. The officers stood by while Jenna and a friend I didn't recognize hauled the space back toward neutral, boxes reloaded into the pickup, small items scooped into armfuls. At the threshold, Jenna turned like she might try one more story. The words didn't come. She went to the truck, sat in the passenger seat, and covered her face. When the house was empty of them, I called a locksmith. Locks are how you rewrite a plot without permission. I sat on the bare edge of the stairs and forced myself to catalog damage. Paint, shelving torn out, a gouge along the baseboard from the tipped desk, a cracked picture frame. Numbers rolled into margins in my head. Jennifer Chen's card, she'd done a seminar at work about fraud and family law, was a weight in my wallet. I put it on the entry table like a promise to my future self. Then I called Mom. She answered on the first ring as if she'd been holding the phone waiting to feel victorious. "I heard Caleb got picked up," she said, voice already scolding. "You didn't have to do that. You know how the system treats men like him." "He violated a protective order," I said. "I didn't do it. He did." Mom huffed. "Those orders are just drama. Jenna didn't mean it. Couples fight." "You remember when he pushed her?" I asked. "Down the stairs." She had Lily in her arms. "She was being dramatic," Mom said quickly. Too quickly. The skill of someone who has rehearsed minimizing. "He's changed. People deserve second chances. This is about the house, Maya, not ancient history." "It's about both," I said. "And you told Jenna I agreed to give her my home." "I told her what's fair would happen," Mom snapped. "Those children need stability. You act like a stranger to your own blood." "I'm changing the locks," I said. "Do not come here. Do not send anyone here. We are done discussing this." "You will regret this," Mom said, voice dropping into the tone she uses when she wants to sound like fate. "When I'm gone, you will wish you had a family." "I wish I had one now," I said, and ended the call before she could hang up on me. The locksmith arrived within the hour, a quiet man with quiet tools. He didn't comment on the pink walls or the boxes stacked like accusations. He swapped out the deadbolts, then handed me new keys like he was officiating a private ceremony. I held them and felt their weight, felt how small they were, and how much they could decide. By the time Ethan got to the house, the sun had gone down and the paint was beginning to look like it could be a joke. He didn't talk at the door. He put the gelato in my freezer, came back, and wrapped his arms around me on the floor, amid a universe of drop cloths and fallen screws. "You're okay," he said into my hair. "You locked the door. You called for help. That's what people do who plan to live." I nodded, and then cried, and then apologized for crying, because there are habits you keep even when you know better. He sat with me until the breathing returned to normal. 10 minutes after he left for a late shift, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but the thing about fire alarms is you always check. "This is Maple Ridge Elementary," a bright, careful voice chirped. "We're calling to confirm details for the new enrollment for Ella Ellison and Mason Ellison. We have listed your address as the children's residence and your relationship as roommate. Also, you're listed as the primary emergency contact. Could you verify?" I had to sit down for the second time that day. The keys felt heavier on my palm. "Can we schedule a time to come by and see the children's rooms?" The voice continued, polite, routine. There was a pause where I decided how much of my life to explain to a stranger at a front office with a headset and a spreadsheet. I chose the shortest version that was true. "There's been a mistake," I said. "A big one." After the call, the house felt different, like a stage someone tried to set while I was out. Doors are only one kind of boundary. Narratives are another. I looked at the pink walls and the bare patch where my office used to be and understood. This wasn't confusion. It was a campaign. I'd said no, and they'd carried the yes into the rooms anyway. I stood, tucked the new keys into my pocket, and did what I do when the numbers get loud. I made a list. Paint remediation, furniture repair, call Jennifer Chen, file a report, gather proof, call Dad, even if it stung, to ask for the history I wasn't told. And one more, buy cameras. In the quiet, the house made its usual settling sounds, pipes shifting, wood remembering. I walked to the front door and locked it. Then I checked it again. Then I checked it a third time. Tomorrow I would start recording everything. Tonight, I would sleep with the light on in the hallway and the new keys under my pillow, like a child who has learned that monsters are real and also knows how to bolt a door. I woke the next morning to a notification from my new security cameras. Motion detected, 6:47 a.m. When I checked the feed, the image made my skin crawl. Mom's silver sedan, idling across the street. She was holding a notepad, taking pictures of my house. She didn't even try to hide. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a family disagreement anymore. It was a campaign, deliberate, organized, and practiced. I called Jennifer Chen, the attorney whose card had been on my table since the locksmith left. Within an hour, I was sitting in her office, surrounded by files that smelled like toner and exhaustion. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving only when I quoted things Mom or Jenna had said. When I told her about the black pickup, the fake move-in, the protective order, the pink paint, and the roommate listing at the elementary school, she exhaled through her nose. Not surprise, just recognition. "You're dealing with the pattern of coercive financial control," she said. "They're attempting to create a paper trail that makes your ownership look ambiguous. We need to get ahead of it." "How?" I asked. "Document everything," she said. "And don't talk to them without recording or witnesses. People like your mother, they create noise until the truth gets buried." I left her office feeling like someone had replaced my bones with wires. That evening, the doorbell rang. Through the camera feed, I saw a woman in a navy blazer holding a clipboard. Her badge read CPS Investigator Thompson. "Good afternoon," she said gently when I opened the door. "We received a report about children allegedly living in unsafe conditions in your basement." I laughed. The wrong reaction, but I couldn't help it. "Children?" She nodded, glancing down at her notes. "It says you're the landlord to your sister and that you've refused to repair mold damage. There are also concerns of neglect." For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. The absurdity was almost elegant. They were trying to turn the same lie inside out. I walked her through the house. She noted the fresh paint, the empty rooms, the obvious absence of children. I showed her the deed, my ID, the security footage of Jenna and Caleb moving in. By the time she left, her professional calm had softened. "This isn't the first report," she admitted quietly. 2 other complaints came in this month, all from different names but the same handwriting style. Don't be surprised if you get more. When the door closed, I sat on the stairs and let the weight of it sink in. They weren't just trying to take my house. They were trying to turn me into the villain. That night, I called Jennifer. She told me she'd start a background check on Mom and Jenna, just to see what she was dealing with. "If there's a trail," she said, "we'll find it." She wasn't exaggerating. 3 days later, she called back with a voice that sounded both triumphant and horrified. "Maya," she said, "you need to come in." She handed me a folder as soon as I sat down. Inside were bank statements, welfare forms, and copies of child support payments from 3 different men, all addressed to Jenna. "Emma's father, James, pays court-ordered support, $400 a month," Jennifer explained. "Michael's father, Robert, sends $350. But then there's this." She pointed to a third name. "David Carlson, from another state. He's been sending $500 every month voluntarily, believing he's Lily's father." I frowned. "But he's not." "Not even close," Jennifer said. "He's never had a paternity test. Jenna met him at a child care training conference when she was already 6 months pregnant. Your mother helped set up an account in her name, the one these transfers go to." My throat dried. "Mom's account?" Jennifer nodded. "Yes, a secondary one she uses to transfer small amounts to Jenna to avoid detection. They've been running this for 3 years. I sat back, the ceiling tilting. "They're defrauding everyone." "More than that," Jennifer said. "They've been collecting welfare on top of those payments, claiming no child support income. Food stamps, daycare subsidies, emergency assistance, all while reporting themselves as destitute single mothers." I felt like I was watching my childhood house burn in slow motion. Every "we're just struggling" conversation, every guilt trip, every late-night plea for help, it was all scaffolding around a scam. Jennifer's tone softened. "Maya, I know this is painful, but you need to know what you're up against. These reports can escalate into false claims, legal filings, even lawsuits." I gave a bitter laugh. Too late. I pulled a crumpled letter from my bag and placed it on her desk. It came yesterday. Jennifer unfolded it and read aloud. "Notice of civil action. Unlawful eviction and breach of verbal contract." "She's suing me," I said, "for the house, or $200,000. Jennifer scanned the letter's signature and smirked. "Her lawyer is Carol Winters' son, right? The friend your mother's always bragged about?" "Yes," I said. "Perfect. He's barely out of law school." Jennifer picked up the phone, called the number listed, and introduced herself. Her tone was polite, but edged with steel. I listened to one side of the conversation, calm explanations punctuated by long pauses. Finally, she said, I strongly advise you to verify your client's story before proceeding. It involves active fraud investigations. She hung up. Case withdrawn within the hour, she said. He's not stupid, just uninformed. I wanted to laugh again, but all I could do was stare at the wall. Don't engage directly, Jennifer warned. They're desperate. Desperation turns inventive. That night, while I was microwaving leftovers, my phone pinged with a Facebook message request. The sender's name, Melissa Ricks. Hi, you don't know me, but I used to be married to Caleb. I heard about what happened. Please don't block me. I think you should know something. She attached screenshots, texts, recordings, even a voice memo of Caleb bragging about pulling the restraining order trick with Jenna. It's the easiest way to make the courts pity you, he said in the recording, laughing. You fake a fight, get the order, and she qualifies for full benefits. Then I move out, but nothing really changes. Melissa's message continued. I've been trying to report them for years. No one believes me. He's done this before. Please protect yourself. I read it 3 times before replying, Thank you. I believe you. I forwarded everything to Jennifer, who immediately began drafting a formal fraud report. The next morning, my phone rang again, a number I hadn't seen in years. Hello? I answered, bracing for another ambush. Maya. I froze. The voice was deeper, slower. Dad? I heard, he said, about the house, about your mom. He paused, the silence heavy with years of distance. I'm proud of you for standing your ground. I didn't trust the sound that came out of me. Half laugh, half sob. He continued, I left because she was doing the same thing back then. Manipulating, fabricating, draining anyone who tried to help. I thought if I stayed, she'd ruin you too. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, You're the first one who ever said no to her. That's why she's fighting so hard. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet of my wrecked, pink-splotched living room. The camera light blinked steadily, my new witness. I made myself a promise right then. No more reacting. Only recording, documenting, exposing. I was done being the quiet one who cleaned up after chaos. This time, I'd let the truth make the noise. 3 nights later, I got the call that changed everything. It was almost midnight, and I was half asleep on the couch. My phone buzzed against the coffee table. Jenna. I almost let it ring out of habit. Then I saw the preview of her voicemail transcribed mid-sentence. He's been arrested again. I picked up. Her voice was trembling so badly it came through in waves. Maya, I didn't know who else to call. Caleb's in jail. He hit his mother when she refused to give him money. She's pressing charges this time. They're saying he could do years. I closed my eyes. Jenna. No, listen, she cried. You need to know the truth before Mom tells you her version. There was a rustling sound like she was pacing. It was all her idea, Maya, the restraining order, the welfare stuff, even the house. I said nothing. I'd learned silence makes people fill in the blanks. She said if I filed a protective order, the government would help more. She said Caleb couldn't be on record, that we'd get double benefits if I looked like a single mother. I didn't want to do it at first, but she made it sound like survival. Her breath hitched. Then she said if I got the house, your house, we'd all be set. She told me you'd never really say no to her, that you just like to make things hard first. I wanted to ask how long this had been going on. Instead, I asked the only thing I could manage. And you believed her? For a while. Her voice cracked. I didn't think she'd lie to me. She's my mom. I thought she knew what was best. But everything's falling apart now. Caleb's gone. The kids keep asking where we're going to live, and Mom... Her voice changed, small and scared. Mom's losing it, Maya. She keeps saying you ruined everything. That if you'd just gone along, none of this would have happened. I took a slow breath. Jenna, you can stop this. Tell the truth. All of it. You can't fix Mom, but you can fix what she's done to you. She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, You don't understand. I don't know who I am without her telling me what to do. The line went quiet, and I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, almost like a confession to herself, You got out. I never did. When the call ended, I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, hearing the echo of her words. You got out. For the first time, I understood. Freedom had always been the thing that made me the villain in Mom's story. The next afternoon, the story escalated into madness. Security cameras pinged again. 1:03 p.m. Mom at my front door, pounding hard enough to shake the frame. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched from my office monitor, heart hammering. She was shouting, not words at first, just sound. Then words started to form, clear and cutting. You think you're better than us? She screamed, face red, hair wild. You owe us, Maya. You owe us because you escaped the struggle. She jabbed her finger at the doorbell camera like she could puncture through it. I took care of you. I fed you. I kept this family together while your father walked away, and this is how you repay me? Reporting your own mother? Do it then. Go ahead. But I swear to God, if you do, I'll tell everyone you abused Jenna's kids. I'll ruin you. I'll make sure Ethan loses his job. I'll destroy you both. Her words turned into a tirade, wild, spiraling, almost rehearsed, and every second of it was being recorded. I called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line until the patrol car arrived. The officers approached her carefully, asked her to step back, to calm down. She didn't. She spat curses, called them names, said she was just trying to talk to her daughter. When they cuffed her, she shouted one last thing toward the camera. You'll regret betraying blood. The door clicked behind her. For the first time in my life, it stayed locked. That night, the footage made its way to Jennifer Chen, who immediately forwarded it to law enforcement. She just admitted to multiple crimes on tape, Jennifer said, voice crisp with disbelief. We're filing for a restraining order first thing in the morning. As I watched the playback again, I noticed something chilling. In her rant, Mom said, we already took care of the paperwork, and Jenna wasn't supposed to break character. It wasn't spontaneous anger. It was a plan unraveling. Jennifer called it the smoking confession. I called it the end of pretending. 2 days later, Dad's side of the family organized a Zoom call. Cousins, uncles, people I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. The screen flickered between faces that looked like mine in ways I hadn't realized I missed. Dad started, Maya, you need to hear what really happened back then. One by one they spoke, each story stitching together a picture I didn't want to see. Mom hadn't been the victim of the divorce. She'd fabricated abuse claims to win full custody and more alimony. She'd run fake charity drives, insurance scams, even sold the same used car to 2 different buyers before claiming it was stolen. Dad went bankrupt trying to defend himself and finally gave up when she threatened to accuse him of hurting us. My uncle told me about the time she faked a fall on his property, planning to sue for damages. My cousin said Jenna had once stolen his identity to open credit cards when she was 19, coached by Mom, of course. Each story was a different shade of the same truth. This wasn't new. This was a lifetime career in manipulation. I just hadn't seen it until she turned it on me. By the time the call ended, I felt hollowed out. Grief for a mother I never really had. Anger for the years spent believing her version of the story. Ethan found me sitting in the dark, the glow from my monitor painting my face pale. He didn't ask questions. He just sat beside me, quiet, steady. After a while, he said softly, You can't fix where you came from, but you can protect where you are. That night, I did something that felt ceremonial. I printed every piece of proof, emails, texts, financial statements, screenshots, and slid them into binders labeled Truth, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. I wasn't going to hide from it anymore. I was going to expose it. When I finished, I looked around the house, the same house that had almost been stolen, and realized it finally felt like mine. Not because I paid for it, but because I'd fought for it. The next morning, Jennifer called again. The DA's office wants everything you've got, she said. They're fast-tracking this. Maya, I think your mom and sister are about to face real charges. I didn't feel triumph, just relief that the truth was finally too big to bury. But before I could process it all, my phone buzzed one more time. It was Jenna again. A text this time. I'm ready to tell them everything. I can't live like this anymore. I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, Good. Tell the truth. Start there. I didn't know it then, but that message was the start of everything coming down. Not just for them, but for all the lies that had built our family. And for the first time, the collapse didn't scare me. It felt like release. 2 weeks after my mother's arrest, the sound of silence finally became something I could trust again. No footsteps on the porch, no mystery cars idling outside, no fake welfare officers knocking on the door. Just the steady hum of my air conditioner and the faint tick of the wall clock. The kind of peace you don't realize you've been craving until it fills the room. The investigation moved fast. Jennifer Chen called almost daily, her voice switching between lawyer sharp and quietly protective, like she knew I was hearing pieces of my own childhood collapse one file at a time. She told me Mom had been charged with welfare fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and making criminal threats, the last charge supported by my doorbell footage. Jenna faced welfare fraud, falsifying police reports, and custodial interference. When Jennifer said custodial interference, I flinched. That meant the children, Ella, Mason, and Lily, were finally being pulled out of the maze we'd all been trapped in. The children. The news came piece by piece. Child Protective Services completed their review, confirming what I already knew. The basement they'd been living in wasn't fit for anyone, let alone children. Damp air, black mold creeping up drywall, holes stuffed with plastic bags to keep out mice. Ironically, Mom's own false reports had brought them to CPS's attention, and ultimately to safety. Ella's father, James, had been fighting for custody for years, but could never locate Jenna long enough to get a hearing. He now had temporary custody and was already arranging therapy for Ella's anxiety. Mason's father, Robert, had no idea he even had a son. He lived in another state, remarried, and was blindsided by a call from the investigator. He immediately began paternity testing and petitioning for visitation. And then there was David, the man who'd been paying child support for a daughter who wasn't his. When Jennifer told him the truth, he didn't shout. He just sighed, said, "I thought so," and asked if there was a way to still help Lily without rewarding Jenna. A week later, he set up a small education trust in Lily's name. "No child should pay for adult lies," he said. "Sometimes decency shows up where you least expect it." Jenna's turning point. When Jenna decided to cooperate, she did it completely. She handed over everything. Text messages, screenshots, even audio clips of Mom planning which church to hit for emergency donations. Her confession was both horrifying and heartbreaking. Every major decision she'd made since she was a teenager, the pregnancies, the dropped-out classes, the accidents, had been orchestrated by Mom for financial gain. Mom had promised her they'd never have to work full-time, that the system was their safety net, that smart people take advantage before the world does. When the truth surfaced, Jenna broke down in court. She's now in a plea deal, in therapy, and attending parenting classes through a victim assistance program. Her lawyer believes she'll serve probation instead of prison time, especially for cooperating. When she called to thank me for hiring Jennifer in the first place, her voice sounded different, smaller, but honest. "I don't know how to live without the scams," she said, "but I'm going to learn." I told her that was the bravest thing she could have said. Mom's fall. Mom refused to cooperate. In her mind, everyone was lying. Me, Jenna, the lawyers, the churches, even her own bank. When she was arraigned, she claimed she was the victim of a family conspiracy. Jennifer sent me the court transcript. It was painful to read. The woman I grew up with had always been theatrical, but seeing her weaponized delusion in a courtroom felt like watching someone drown while insisting they were winning. She's facing 5 to 10 years in prison. Even now, she's spinning stories. That I stole the house, that I brainwashed Jenna, that the DA is part of some vendetta orchestrated by Dad. But the evidence speaks louder than she ever could. For the first time in my life, her words don't work anymore. Rebuilding what's mine. Insurance covered the repairs to my home. The pink walls, the broken shelving, even the desk Caleb smashed. The new paint is sea glass gray, and my office is finally back together. I installed reinforced locks and an upgraded security system. Richard, my neighbor, still waves from his porch when I leave for work. He told me the first few nights after the arrests, he'd drive by just to make sure no one came back. "You've got good bones," he said. "House and heart both." He doesn't say much else, but he doesn't need to. The people who stayed. Through everything, Ethan has been my anchor. While my family was unraveling, he was helping me tape back pieces of myself. He showed up with dinner after court dates, installed extra lights in the driveway, and listened when words wouldn't come out right. One night, while I was sorting receipts for the fraud claims, he quietly took my hand and said, "You know what I think your real victory is?" "What?" "You stopped apologizing for surviving." We got engaged a week later. Not with a big proposal, just a quiet evening, the two of us on the back patio, him slipping a simple ring onto my finger while saying, "Let's build something that can't be stolen." His family welcomed me like they'd known me for years. His mother, Sharon, hugged me and whispered, "Family isn't who shares your blood, sweetheart. It's who shows up when the storm hits." I think that's the first time I actually believed it. The truth about the past. Dad flew in for the hearing. Seeing him after so many years was surreal. He brought old court documents, proof of Mom's manipulations during the divorce, and photos from when we were little, before things fell apart. He told me he'd always wanted to explain but didn't want to interfere while I was under Mom's control. He'd remarried 5 years ago and has 2 young sons now. When he invited me to visit, I hesitated. Old guilt still tugs like muscle memory, but I said yes. He looked relieved in a way that broke my heart. "You remind me of your mother's strength," he said softly, "but you use it to heal instead of destroy." That was the first compliment I'd ever believed from a parent. Moving forward, therapy is teaching me what peace feels like when it's not followed by a threat. My therapist says I have symptoms of complex PTSD, hypervigilance, guilt over rest, the need to document everything. She told me healing is about learning when to stop collecting evidence and start living. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. I joined a support group for survivors of financial and familial abuse. Listening to strangers tell versions of my story made me realize how many of us grow up thinking manipulation is love, that debt is gratitude, that saying no makes us bad people. It doesn't. It makes us free. Lessons learned. If you're reading this and your family has ever made you feel like self-protection is betrayal, remember this. Boundaries aren't walls. They're locks. And locks exist because peace is worth protecting. Help doesn't mean enabling. Love doesn't mean surrender. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone drowning in lies is to stop swimming toward them. Tonight, as I write this final entry, the house is quiet again. The new locks gleam under the porch light. The hum of the fridge is steady. I look around and think about all the years I mistook obligation for love. My name is Maya Ellison, and for the first time in my life, the silence around me isn't dangerous. It's sacred. I worked for this peace, I fought for it, and I'm not apologizing for protecting it anymore.